Shadows breathing just beyond the glass. Entities that whisper scriptures, twisting every truth you thought would last. The safety that you swear you live in is only paper, and we live in an unseen kingdom. Do you feel it?
Welcome in the dark, everyone. I have a few stories to read to you tonight. Got them in a while back, and of course I did some refining to put them in story versions so they sounded a little better. And thought I would bring them to you. I really love all three of them, actually. They're pretty good stories. I've been working a lot on... I am literally writing 8 books right now. This is how crazy my life has gotten. I am absolutely obsessing and just throwing myself so completely into this book writing stuff that it is insane. The illustrations, working with photo editing tools. That's where, some of the stuff you'll see me doing, I'm just kind of like, I'm like learning all this stuff, and I'm learning how to use editing tools and a bit of AI. I don't really want to do too much AI, but everything helps. Like it's just amazing. I mean, it's so cool, and the work is mine. Like I write everything, I do the illustrations, and then you perfect them, you throw them on photo editing tools, and just get some really cool stuff back. So if you see, like, today I did that DogMan, that little cartoon, or not cartoon, but that little animated thing that I put up there to tell the DogMan was telling you that there was going to be an episode tonight, and I just started cracking up. I was like, this is so fun. And then I put like I did like a little clip of the Bigfoot and the Dogman clashing. That was just me messing around just to kind of take a break from all the heavy stuff I was doing. But this has been really awesome. Like I have, I think it's 4 or 5 children's stories I'm doing. I'm perfecting the Hairy Pumpkin and the Legend of the Very First, or the Legend of the First Christmas is what I'm going to call the book. I shortened the title, and then I've got some other things going on. I don't want to really say what they are, but it's been just amazing. But I am absolutely just mentally like, wow, like my brain feels like it's half fried right now. So, and then I've got some novels I'm writing. So, and I'm doing songs for everything and clips and, the illustrations and the writing, and I got to put it all in the right format. And I'm just like, wow, it's becoming really crazy. So, I've kind of fallen off the radar a little bit because of all that, but I'm trying. I just really so desperately want to get at least some of these books done and out there, and just really start doing that and really start hitting podcasting harder than I have been. I just, for a long time, I think I replaced other things with it and didn't take it as serious, but I'm starting to kind of feel a little bit different now. I'm starting to feel like, I really kind of want to do this more. So, and I know I've said this in the past, like I wanted to do things more, but I didn't really, I didn't feel like I could. Now I'm starting to feel like I can. So it's been really cool. But let's get to the stories. Let's not get into all this too long, so I'm not too long-winded. The first one is called The Stepfather Who Didn't Last. My mom met Gary at a PTA meeting. I was 9. My sister Maddie was 7. Gary had a mustache he was very proud of and a boat he never used. He sold insurance. He laughed at his own jokes. He called my mom doll in a way that made me want to leave the room, but she liked it. She liked being called doll. She liked that he had a 401k and a truck that didn't make sounds. They got married 6 months later. We moved into his house. It was a split level in the suburbs with a finished basement and a lawn that he mowed in stripes. He had a system for everything. Dishes went in the dishwasher a certain way. Towels were folded a certain way. The television was turned off at exactly 9 p.m. because electricity cost more after 9. He explained this to us like we were stupid. The trouble started small. Gary believed in structure. That was his word. He said we needed structure because our real father, who we saw every other weekend and who let us eat candy for breakfast, didn't give us structure. Structure meant no talking at dinner unless spoken to. Structure meant sitting up straight. Structure meant if you spilled your milk, you sat in the hallway for 15 minutes and thought about what you did. Maddie spilled a lot of milk. She was 7. Her hands were small. She cried the first time he made her sit in the hallway. I sat with her. Gary came out and told me to go back to the table. I said no. He grabbed my arm, not hard, just firm. He walked me back to the table and put me in my chair. He said, "When I say something, I mean it." My mom was in the kitchen. She saw it happen. She didn't say anything. That was the pattern. Gary would get on us about something, grades, chores, the way we walked across the carpet in shoes, and his voice would get louder and he'd get closer, and his hand would come out and my mom would be there watching, not saying anything. He never hit us. He never hit her. But he grabbed, he pushed, he stood too close. He did the thing where he put his face next to yours and talked in a low voice so you could feel his breath on your cheek. Maddie started wetting the bed. My mom said it was normal. Gary said she was doing it for attention. He started checking her sheets every morning. If they were wet, she had to strip the bed herself and carry the sheets to the washing machine while he stood there with his arms crossed watching. I started having dreams about the house. Not nightmares exactly, dreams where I would walk through the living room at night and the air would be thicker in certain places. The hallway, by the stairs, the corner of the basement, places that felt like they had weight, like something was standing there waiting. I didn't tell anyone about the dreams, but I started noticing things when I was awake. The front door would be unlocked when I knew Gary had locked it. The thermostat would be turned up to 78 degrees in the middle of July, which drove Gary crazy. One time he was yelling at Maddie about something. I don't even remember what. Some minor thing, and the television turned on by itself. Full volume, static. Gary went to turn it off, and it wouldn't turn off. He had to unplug it. Maddie laughed. She couldn't help it. Gary sent her to her room and didn't let her have dinner. That night I woke up to a sound in the hallway, a soft sound, like someone walking in slippers. I got up and looked out my door. The hallway was empty, but Gary's bedroom door was open. He was standing in the doorway looking down the hall toward Maddie's room. He was holding his belt. He didn't see me. He stood there for maybe 30 seconds just looking. Then he went back into his room and closed the door. Things got worse after that. Gary was angrier. He started drinking after work. Just beer, but more of it. He would come home and find things to be upset about. A spot on the floor, a toy left out, the way Maddie chewed her food. He never hit us, but he started talking about it. He would say, "You're lucky I'm a patient man." He would say, "In my house, when I was a kid, you would have gotten the belt for that." He would say it while looking at the spot on the wall where the belt hung in his closet. I started leaving my door open at night. I don't know why. I just felt like I should. One night I woke up and heard footsteps. Not slippers this time, boots. Gary wore boots to work. I heard him walk down the hall. I heard him stop outside of Maddie's door. I sat up in bed. I didn't know what to do. I was 11. He was a grown man. I sat there frozen, listening. I heard her door open. And then I heard something else, a sound from the living room downstairs, a heavy sound like furniture moving. Gary stopped. I heard him turn. I heard him walk to the top of the stairs. He stood there for a long time. Then I heard him go downstairs. I crept to my door and looked out. The stairs were dark, but I could see the living room light on. Gary was standing in the middle of the living room looking at the couch. The couch had been moved. It was pushed against the front door. Gary kept his keys on the coffee table. The coffee table was upside down. Gary stood there for a full minute. Then he said very quietly, "What the hell?" He went back upstairs. He closed his bedroom door. He didn't go near Maddie's room. The next morning, Gary was quiet. He looked at the couch. He looked at the coffee table. He asked my mom if she had done it. She said no. He asked me. I said no. He asked Maddie. She was eating her cereal. She looked up at him with her big eyes and said, "The lady did it." Gary went white. What lady? Maddie shrugged. The lady who lives here. She doesn't like you. Gary looked at my mom. My mom looked at Maddie. My mom said, Maddie, that's enough. Maddie said, she said to tell you that if you touch us, she'll break your legs. My mom grabbed Maddie's arm and took her into the kitchen. I heard them talking in low voices. Gary sat at the table staring at nothing. He didn't eat his breakfast. He didn't go to work that day. He sat in the living room on the couch that had been moved, and he didn't turn on the television. He just sat. Gary started sleeping on the couch after that. He said he couldn't sleep downstairs. He said the hallway felt wrong. My mom tried to talk to him about it. He wouldn't talk. He just drank beer and sat in the living room with the lights on. Things kept happening. The belt disappeared from his closet. He found it in the backyard hanging from a tree branch. His truck keys ended up in the garbage disposal. His work boots were found in the bathtub full of water. The television would turn on in the middle of the night, always to static, always loud enough to wake the whole house. Gary started looking tired. He stopped drinking. He stopped yelling. He just sat in the living room looking at the walls, waiting for the next thing. One night, I was up late reading. I heard Gary go to the kitchen. I heard him open the refrigerator. Then I heard a sound I had never heard before. A voice. A woman's voice, low, clear. I couldn't make out the words, but I heard the tone. It wasn't angry, it was final. It was the kind of voice you use when you were explaining something for the last time. Gary came out of the kitchen. He walked to the front door. He opened it. He stood in the doorway for a moment, looking out at the dark street. Then he walked out. He didn't take his truck. He didn't take anything. He just walked. I watched him go. I watched him walk down the driveway, turn left, and disappear into the dark. He didn't come back that night or the next. My mom called his phone. It went to voicemail. She called his work. They said he had called in sick for the week. She called his friends. They hadn't heard from him. A week later, a moving truck showed up. Two men came to the door and said they were there to pick up Gary's things. They had a key. They had a note. The note said, I'm not coming back. Don't look for me. My mom tried to find him. She called his mother in Florida. His mother said he had shown up 3 days ago looking thin and told her he was taking a break. He said he needed to think. He didn't say what about. He didn't say when he was coming back. He never came back. The divorce was finalized a year later. My mom got the house. She sold it. She said it was too big for us. But I think she knew. I think she knew something was in that house and she didn't know if it was done. We moved to a smaller place across town, a duplex with a shared driveway and a landlord who fixed things when they broke. It was fine. It was quiet. No moving furniture, no television static, no voices in the kitchen. Maddie stopped wetting the bed. She started talking more. She got louder. She laughed. She spilled milk and didn't flinch. My mom started cooking again. Real meals, not just the frozen stuff Gary liked. She started playing music in the kitchen, old stuff from when she was young, and she smiled more. We never talked about what happened, not really, but one night, a few years later, Maddie and I were sitting on the porch of the duplex, watching fireflies. She was 12 by then, and I was 14. She said, Do you remember the lady? I said I did. She said she told me something else that night. The night I told Gary she would break his legs. I asked what she said. Maddie said, she said, I am not for you. I am for him. You will never need me again. I asked Maddie if she believed that. She looked at the fireflies. She said, I haven't needed her. Have you? I thought about it. I thought about Gary. I thought about the way he left, the way he never came back, the way he never even called. I thought about the voice in the kitchen, low and final. I thought about the couch pushed against the door, the keys in the disposal, the belt in the tree. I thought about a woman who was not for us. She was for him. She was what he needed, a reason to leave, a reason to be afraid. I said, no, I haven't needed her. Maddie nodded. She went back to watching the fireflies. She was fine. We were both fine. And somewhere in a split-level house across town in a living room where a couch had been moved, in the middle of the night there was probably nothing at all, just an empty house, a for sale sign, a hallway that felt wrong. But I like to think she stayed. I like to think she's still there, waiting for the next one. The next man who comes home angry, the next belt in the closet, the next child who spills milk. She's not for the children, she's for him. She's what he needs. And she'll be there when he gets home. That was a relatable story for a lot of people. I had an experience one time where the person I was with, I had always felt that he was a really, like, narcissistic, bad type of man. But he always, like, kinda convinced you that he wasn't bad, that he was, like, the one that was the good one, as most narcissists do. And I remember one time he left and he moved out. He just decided he was gonna move out one time. And my girls, they stayed upstairs in the bedroom together. They shared a room. And he was gone for several weeks, and I was really actually happy. I was contented. I mean, I missed him, but the house was light, and he started to come over, like, come back to the house, and more like visits for a while. He was staying with his mother, and, I remember feeling like I didn't want him to move back in. I just wanted to be with them, but not live with them. It was really weird. But I'm sure that happens to a lot of people, just that stress and tension of living with somebody sometimes. It's just really hard, especially when you're dealing with a really hard personality. And he started to come back, and then he finally came back completely. And he was there maybe a day or two. And I remember my daughters saying, they both came running downstairs and they were really upset and afraid. And I was like, what's wrong? And they said they heard this demonic voice come out of their closet that said, like, in a really, like, demonic, like, like a male voice, but it was like, it was scary. It was a scary voice. And it said, get him out. And they both heard it as plain as day. And to the point they ran downstairs to me and they were in tears. And I never, ever, ever let my daughter sleep in that room again alone. Ever. My one daughter was sleeping up there more, and my other daughter was sleeping down. Our room was downstairs, and so the daughter that was sleeping in that room, I never let her sleep in that room again. I either I slept with her, or she slept. We had this big wraparound, like, lounge couch that you could pull out into a bed, and there was the Chase lounge to it, and a recliner at the one end, so it was just completely comfortable. We just slept there every night together. I was so protective with my kids. Like, I was really, really protective. But that's something that, I think some people can really relate to these stories. Hang on a second. Now for the Dogman stories. We're going to call this one The Bench. I love this one. Harlan Crow was born in that cabin in 1927. He died there in 2015, 87 years old, on the same 300 acres of hardwoods, creek bottoms, and one rocky ridge that caught the sunshine. His great-grandfather had bought the land in 1887 from a Union soldier who couldn't stand the sight of trees after the war. The Crows had been there ever since. Harlan never left. He never wanted to. He rebuilt the cabin piece by piece over the decades. New roof in 52, a proper stone foundation in 63, a wood stove that could heat the whole place in 91. He added a screened porch in 78 because his wife Margaret wanted one. She died in 99. After that, Harlan didn't add much of anything. He just maintained. He kept the place from falling down the way he kept himself from falling apart. His grandchildren knew the story. They had heard it from their parents, who had heard it from Harlan's mother, who had heard it from her father-in-law, the first Harlan, the one who bought the land. The story went like this. There is something in the woods. It has always been there. It was there before the cabin. It will be there after. It is not a bear. It is not a wolf. It is not a man. It walks on 2 legs, sometimes, and 4 legs others. It does not want to hurt you. It does not want to help you. It wants to be left alone. But if you sit very still in the right place at the right time, it will come and sit near you. Not close, just near, and it will stay until the moon is high, and then it will leave. The right place was a clearing in the hemlocks and the pines. The right time was dusk. The first time. Harlan was 12 when he first went to the clearing. His grandfather had told him about it on his deathbed. The old man had been feeble for months, but when he grabbed Harlan's wrist, his grip was iron. If you go to the bench, he said, you sit. You stay calm. You don't bring a gun. You sit and you wait. And if it comes, you don't reach for it. You don't speak to it. You just sit. Harlan's grandfather died that night. 3 days later, Harlan found the bench. It was old. The wood was gray and split, held together with rusted nails and what looked like old fencing wire. Something had built it a long time ago. Someone had built it a long time ago. Maybe the first Harlan. Maybe someone before him. It faced west, toward the ridge, toward the sunset. There was nothing else in the clearing, just the bench and the ferns and the pines closing in from all sides. Harlan sat down. He waited. The sun went down, the air got cold, the fireflies came up from the creek. He heard owls, he heard something large moving through the brush on the far side of the clearing, heavy, deliberate, not a deer. Deer are nervous, this was not nervous. He didn't see it that first night, but he heard it breathe, a low, deep exhalation, like a bellows, coming from the darkness just beyond the reach of the starlight. He sat perfectly still. The breathing went on for a long time, then it stopped. Then he heard the creature move away, slow, each step deliberate until the sound was gone. He went back the next night, and the next, and the next. It was the second week. Harlan had been sitting on the bench for maybe an hour. The light was almost gone. He was starting to think he would only ever hear the thing, never see it. Then it stepped out of the pines. It came from the north side of the clearing, moving between 2 trees that were too close together for anything that size to pass. But it passed. It was tall, taller than his father, who was the tallest man Harlan had ever known. Its shoulders was broad and sloped. Its head was large, set low between its shoulders, and it moved with a fluid rolling gait that was nothing like a man's. It crossed to the far side of the clearing, maybe 40 feet from the bench. Then it stopped. It turned its head. It looked at Harlan. In the dying light, Harlan could not make out details. He saw the shape of the head, the placement of the ears, the heavy brow. He saw that it was covered in hair that was dark. He saw that its arms hung low, the hands at mid-thigh, the fingers curled slightly inward. Then it sat down. Not on the bench, it sat on the ground. It faced the same direction as the bench, west, toward the ridge, and it did not look at Harlan again. They sat like that until the moon was high. Harlan did not move. The creature did not move. Then, without any sound that Harlan could hear, it stood up and walked back into the pines and hemlocks and was gone. That became the pattern. Harlan went to the bench every night that he could. The creature came almost every night. Sometimes it was already there when Harlan arrived, sitting on the far side of the clearing waiting. Sometimes it came later, stepping out of the trees like it had all the time in the world. Sometimes it did not come at all, and Harlan sat alone until the dew soaked through his pants, and then he walked back to the cabin and tried again the next night. He never spoke to it. He never tried to get closer. He never brought a weapon or any other person. But after a few years, he started bringing things. The first thing he brought was a piece of beef jerky. He left it on the bench when he stood up to leave. He walked away without looking back. In the morning, the jerky was gone. There were no tracks near the bench, just his own and the deep impressions of the creature's feet at the edge of the clearing, where it always sat. He started bringing something every time, jerky, a strip of venison, once a hard biscuit left over from supper. The thing always took it. Harlan never saw it take. He just left the offering on the bench, walked away, and found it gone in the morning. He never tried to give it anything directly. He never held out his hand. He never set the food on the ground between them. The food went on the bench. The creature took it after he left. That was the rule. He didn't know who made the rule. He just knew not to break it. Harlan married Margaret when he was 25. She was a good woman. She never went to the clearing. He asked her not to. She understood. She raised their children on the land, and when the children were old enough, Harlan told them the story. He took each of them to the clearing exactly once when they turned 12, the same age he had been. He sat them on the bench. He told them to be still. He told them not to speak, and then he waited with them until the creature came. It always came. It sat at the edge of the clearing, 40 feet away, facing the ridge. The children were afraid. That was fine. Fear was part of it. The point was not to run from the fear. The point was to sit with it, to let it wash over you, to discover that you could be afraid and still be still. After the visit, Harlan would walk the child back to the cabin. He would say, "Now you know. It's real. It's not a story. It's real, and it lives here. We share this land with it. We always have. We always will." Most of the children grew up and left the land. That was fine, too. They took the story with them. They told their own children in cities and suburbs far away from the pines and hemlocks about the creature that sat at the edge of the clearing and watched the sunset next to a man on a bench. Harlan got old. His knees went. His back went. He stopped being able to make the walk to the clearing. His oldest son built him a bench on the porch of the cabin, facing west, so he could watch the same sunset. But it wasn't the same. He knew it. The creature knew it too. The last years of his life, Harlan would sit on the porch and look toward the hemlocks. Sometimes, just at dusk, he would see movement at the edge of the tree line. A shape, dark against the green, standing still watching. His daughter-in-law sat. Wow. Let me try this again. The last year of his life, Harlan would sit on the porch and look toward the hemlocks and pines. Sometimes, just at dusk, he would see movement at the edge of the tree line. A shape, dark against the green, standing still, watching. His daughter-in-law saw it once. She asked him what it was. He said, "An old friend." He died in his bed in the cabin his great-grandfather built. They buried him on the ridge in the family cemetery next to his wife and his parents and his grandparents and the first Harlan, the one who bought the land. The night after the funeral, Harlan's grandson, a boy named Samuel, 12 years old, walked to the clearing. He sat on the bench, and he waited. The creature came. It stepped out of the pines, slow and heavy, and crossed to its place at the edge of the clearing. It sat down on the ground the way a dog sits, facing the ridge. It did not look at Samuel. Samuel sat very still. He did not speak, and he did not reach for it. They sat together until the moon was high. Then the creature stood up, but it did not walk back into the trees. Instead, it walked to the edge of the clearing and stopped. It turned its head. It looked directly at Samuel. Samuel saw its eyes for the first time. They were dark, old, and something in them, something he could not name, looked like grief. Then the creature turned and walked into the trees. Samuel heard it moving through the brush for a long time, heading not toward the deep woods, but toward the ridge, toward the cemetery. He followed. He was careful. He stayed far back. The creature stopped at the stone wall. It stood there for a moment. Then it stepped over the wall, not jumping, just stepping, the way a man steps over a low fence and walks among the graves. It stopped at Harlan's grave. The earth was still fresh. The stone was new. The creature stood over the grave. Its head was bowed. Its shoulders were hunched. It stood that way for a long time, perfectly still, while the wind moved through the trees, and the moon traced its arc across the sky. Then it lowered itself. It sat on the ground beside the grave, the way a dog sits beside its master's chair. It faced the headstone. Samuel watched from behind the stone wall. He watched until its legs went numb. His legs went numb. He watched until the sky began to lighten in the east. The creature did not move. It sat at the grave all night, and when the sky started to lighten, it melted back into the forest. Samuel went back to the cabin. He did not tell anyone what he had seen. He kept it to himself, the way his grandfather had kept the clearing, the way his great-grandfather had kept the story. But he wrote it down on a piece of paper in pencil. He wrote, "He went to the grave." And I never saw him again. He folded the paper and put it into his pocket. He kept it there for 30 years. When he was old himself, he gave it to his own grandson, and he said, "There is something in the woods. It has always been there. It was there before the cabin. It will be there after. It is not a bear. It is not a wolf. It is not a man. But it loved your great-great-grandfather, and when he died, it mourned him." That was the story. That was all. And the last story, the group was 5 people. 3 men, 2 women, all experienced hikers. They had done the Appalachian Trail in sections, the long trail in Vermont, a chunk of the Pacific crest, before fires closed it. This was supposed to be an easy one, 4 days in the Allegheny National Forest. Nothing technical, just miles and campfires and a break from jobs and cell service. The big man's name was Matt, 6'6", 280, broad as a doorway. He had played football in college, offensive line, and he still carried the weight like armor. He wasn't scared of much. He had been charged by a moose in Montana and stood his ground. He had broken up a bar fight in Pittsburgh by picking one guy up and setting him down outside. His friends called him Moose. He didn't mind. He carried a gun in the woods because his father had taught him to, a handgun big enough for bear. He also carried bear spray. He had never used either. He hoped he never would. They set up camp on a ridge with a good overlook. To the east, the ground fell away into a broad valley, thick with trees, oak trees, with a creek at the bottom that they could hear but not see. To the west, the ridge continued, leading to higher ground and a fire tower that had been decommissioned in the 90s. They hung their food bags, set up their tents, cooked dinner on a small stove, standard stuff. The first night was fine. They slept. They woke, they hiked, they came back. Second night was the one. Matt couldn't sleep. It was past midnight. He had been lying in his tent for 2 hours, staring at the mesh, listening to the others breathe. His legs were restless. His back was stiff from the day's hike. He unzipped his tent, pulled on his boots, and stood up. The air was cold, no wind, the moon was half full, enough to see by, not enough to read by. He clipped his bear spray to his belt, checked that the Glock was in his chest rig, and started walking. He didn't have a destination, he just wanted to move. He walked along the ridge for a while, then turned south, following a deer trail that led down into the valley. The trees closed in, the ground got softer, the sound of the creek got louder. And then he felt it. Not heard it, felt it. A pressure in his chest like the air had gotten heavier. He stopped walking. He stood still and listened. There was nothing. No wind, no owls, no crickets. The kind of silence that doesn't happen in a healthy forest. The kind of silence that means every animal within a mile has stopped breathing. He looked down into the valley. There was movement. A lot of it. Shadows within shadows shifting at the edge of his vision. He couldn't count them, he couldn't see them clearly, but he could see that they were really big. He should have turned back. He knew he should have turned back, but Matt was a big man. Big men get used to not being afraid, and that habit is hard to break, even when you should be terrified. So he kept walking. The bear trail opened into a small clearing at the base of the valley. The creek was silent. The creek was 20 yards to his left. The trees were older here, massive oaks with trunks wider than his arms could reach, and between two of those oaks there was an opening in the ground. Not a cave with a rock arch, a hole. A dark, wide hole that slanted down into the earth, disappearing into blackness, it seemed. They were coming out of it. Matt stopped at the edge of the clearing. He was maybe 50 yards away, and he could see them clearly now in the moonlight. There were several of them. They ranged in size from something that would have been small for a man, 5 feet slender, to something that made Matt feel small. The largest one was standing near the hole, facing away from him. It was easily 7.5 feet tall. Its shoulders were so broad they seemed to block the moonlight. Its fur was dark, almost black. They were not standing upright. Some were on all fours. Some were crouching. One was grooming its forearm like a dog cleaning its paw. They moved with a fluid, casual ease that said they had no predators. They were the predators. In the center of the clearing, 3 of them were eating a deer. The carcass was fresh. Matt could see the glint of wet hide, the darker stain of blood on the ground. One of the creatures had its muzzle buried in the rib cage. Another was pulling at a hind leg. The third, a smaller one, was sitting back on its haunches, holding a piece of something in its hands and eating it like a person eats an apple. Matt saw the little ones then, 2 of them. They were near the hole, tumbling over each other like puppies wrestling in the dirt. They were maybe 3 feet tall, gangly, with oversized paws and ears that seemed too big for their heads. One of them rolled onto its back and kicked its legs in the air. He was watching a family, a pack, a whatever you called a group of things that should not exist. And then the big one turned around. It happened slowly. The largest creature, the one standing near the hole, had been facing away from Matt, looking down into the darkness. It turned its head first, just its head. The neck rotated farther than a human neck should rotate, and its eyes found Matt immediately, like it had known he was there the whole time. Its eyes were amber and they glowed, like there was a fire within. The creature turned its whole body then it stood to its full height. Matt had never felt small in his life. He felt small now. The others noticed. The ones eating the deer lifted their heads. Blood dripped from their muzzles. The wrestling pups stopped and sat up, looking at Matt with the bright, curious attention of children who have spotted something new. The clearing went silent. No chewing, no movement, just the creek, still running and indifferent. Matt did not move. He did not breathe. His hand was on his bear spray, but he did not draw it. His gun was against his chest, but he did not reach for it. He knew with a certainty that he had no reason behind it, that if he moved, they would move, and if they moved, he would not have time to do anything except die. The big one stared at him for a long time. 5 seconds, 10, 15. It was not deciding whether to kill him. Matt understood that. It had already decided. It was deciding whether to bother. Then the big one turned away. It looked down at the deer carcass. It took a step toward the meat. The others followed its lead. The pup sat quietly. The one went back to eating. They were done with him. Matt walked backward. He did not turn around. He did not run. He walked backward slowly, pacing each foot with care until the trees closed behind or between him and the clearing. Then he kept walking backward until the creek was behind him and the slope was rising. Then he turned and walked up the ridge as fast as he could without breaking into a run. Running was prey behavior. He did not want to be prey. His hands were shaking when he got back to camp. He stood at the edge of the tents and forced himself to breathe, in through his nose, out through his mouth. He did that for a full minute, then he woke them up. "Pack up," he said. "We're leaving." It was 2 a.m. His friends groaned. Someone asked why. He said, "I'll explain later. We need to go now." They didn't move fast enough. He grabbed his own tent and started shoving it into its sack. He didn't fold it. He didn't care. The others saw his hand shaking. They saw his face, and they started moving faster. He told his friends 2 rangers had ordered them out, something about a potential flash flood. He made it up as he went along. It didn't have to be good, it just had to be enough. They left, and they hiked out by headlamp 2 miles to the trailhead and piled into their cars. Matt drove. He didn't speak for the first hour. When his friend in the passenger seat finally asked what happened, Matt said, "I saw something in the woods, and I don't want to talk about it." They didn't push. Matt never went back to that forest. He never reported what he saw. He thought about it once. He imagined walking into the ranger station and saying, "I saw a pack of werewolves eating a deer in a valley south of the fire tower." He imagined the look on the ranger's face, so he kept his mouth shut. But he thought about the way the big one had looked at him, the way it had decided not to bother. He thought about the pups tumbling in the dirt, playing while their parents fed. He thought about the eyes, amber, glowing. He still carries the Glock in the woods. He still carries bear spray. He still goes hiking. He is not afraid of much, but he does not go out alone at night anymore. And when he sets up camp, he stays away from valleys. He stays on high ground. He sleeps with one eye open. And sometimes in the dark, he wonders if they are still there. The hole in the ground, the family in the clearing, the big one with the amber glowing eyes, standing at the entrance to its home, watching a 7-foot man walk backward into the trees, letting him go. He wonders why. He has never figured it out. He hopes he never has to. I thought they were pretty good. Pretty good stories. You got to kind of perfect them a little. People send you stuff and their spelling is terrible and things don't make sense sometimes, and you have to kind of put it together better in story form, but they're pretty cool. I really like getting stories. I've got a whole bunch of them, just a whole pile of them in different emails, and I have to go through a lot of them, and there's a lot of work to them because people send them in and you have to really edit them and make them sound good, but it's awesome hearing from everybody. If you guys have any stories, please send them to me. I'd really appreciate it just to keep the collection going. Please also, guys, I really, really, really need you guys to like and especially subscribe to my channels, especially YouTube and Spotify. Spotify is, I'm more active on Spotify. YouTube I haven't done as much with, but I'm getting there. I'm going to really try to start building that up. And I did put the channel up on TikTok and Instagram, and I'm not sure what I've done with Instagram. I have to go back in and kind of tweak that. But I'm working at things here. I'm just, I really want to get at least the one book out for the season. It's about, the ice cream truck, and I want to get that, the story out for the kids. And I have to I have to get like the, what are they called? Like I can't remember what they're called. There's like ISBN number or something for the books. There's like 3 different ones that you get. You've got to market them, and some of them have to be sold online. Some do it through actual book sales, and there's others that you do on Amazon Kindle. So I have to do 3 different numbers, and it's like a barcode for the books. But I really seriously want to get them out there, and I would love if you guys bought them, at least one way or another. Buy them for your grandkids or your kids, however old you are, or even just yourself, just to have them. And just to know that you got the stories. But I've worked really hard on these stories, a lot of hours, illustrations and writing and perfecting and editing, and just so much work. I mean, there's been so much that has gone into this. It's been absolutely crazy, but it's definitely a learning experience. I mean, I'm still learning this stuff. I'm still learning podcasting. I'm still learning how to, perfect things, and I'm sure I'll get better as I go. I just, it's a little rough around the edges at times, but it's more real. I mean, that's all I can say. It's something I thought about doing, like one of those voiceover things, or have like, AI create your voice for you so your voice is perfected. And I sat down, thought about it. I was like, I just don't know if I want to do that. So I really like the personal touch of things like that. You can use, those are tools that can be used for certain things at certain times. It's not meant for everything. So, but I mean, it's just something that you just got to kind of figure out as you go. But I just, I really enjoy this stuff. I do enjoy it, and I think I'm starting to grow into it more, like really enjoy it. But just see. I forgot to put my candle over there. How about that? And so I'm creating like songs for the channel and, different things like that. You have to work with so many different programs with some of this stuff sometimes. And it's like there's just not enough. Like they need one program that does it all. So, and knowing me, I'll probably, figure that one out too and create my own program. And I actually had to start my own publishing company name for these books. So that's going to be a whole other animal. And my son just started laughing, shaking his head. It's just like, I'm like, I know, I'm just ridiculous. Like I have to like, I don't like to like when I get on like something like if you use Craigslist or eBay or something, if something frustrates me, I make my own. That's how I do things. So it's pretty crazy. But anyway, I enjoyed this and I hope you guys did too. And I should be talking to you hopefully very soon. Just give me a little time here and I'll start to try to get on more and, get more videos out to you. So take care, you guys, and God bless you all.
Porch lighter hums, you lock your door. Say a little prayer like you did before. But something moves where the street ends. Branches bow low